I think in order to understand what I'm trying to do in general, but especially in the recent buildings I've been lucky enough to be the architect for in New York, in Manhattan, one has to understand that I grew up in the city, in Brooklyn. And to me, the skyline of Manhattan seen from the subway train going into Manhattan was one of the most remarkable things imaginable. When I began to be asked to do tall buildings, residential buildings, I tried to recapture some of that feeling. The city is made up of background buildings and foreground buildings, and I'm now here echoing the observations of my teacher, Paul Rudolph, who said, that modern architects were great at making one-off buildings that would stand by themselves and celebrate themselves, but they had not learned, and we still haven't learned, modernism hasn't, how to make background buildings, how to frame streets, how to create a Central Park West as a gigantic articulated wall of structures, not a series of twisting, turning, isolated things. I mean, we have just a lot of silly buildings being built now, in my opinion. A building should not look like Lady Gaga. 15 Central Park West, of course, has become an amazing success. It's known in the real estate business as the Limestone Jesus because it achieves such incredible prices for apartments. I'm very happy to be a part of that, but and certainly I want my clients and the people who bought the apartments to enjoy the success. But for me, the building was about an idea, not a real estate idea, but an architectural idea, or a couple of architectural ideas, one of which was to fill out the wall of Central Park West. If you look at Central Park West, say from Fifth Avenue, from an apartment on Fifth Avenue, you see it's an amazing wall. It's the kind of thing that in Broadway musicals, if they wanted to show a New York backdrop, they would depict in some form or another that wall. And it's a wall that goes up about 15 or 16 stories, fills the block fronts, and then where there are big enough sites in the late 20s and early 30s, towers were built on top of the wall. It's a very simple, straightforward idea. And each tower, or pairs of towers in some cases, have marvelous, elaborate tops. So we have a wall building, we call it the Park House. And then, because we have a huge site at 15, it goes all the way back to Broadway, a full block, very unusual. We were able to build a tall building behind. It's not a needle tower, it is a slab, but it's articulated as much as possible with a very romantic top to give it a strong profile. Between the two buildings, there's two courtyards and a connecting passageway for the residents. And the language of the buildings picks up from the Art Deco of Central Park West, but the use of limestone, which was was much more expensive, and our clients, the Zeckendorfs, went for it as an idea, connects it to some of the finest residential buildings, not to mention buildings like the Empire State Building. The apartments at the ends have 3 exposures, and the 2 apartments in the middle have 2 exposures, front and back. That's a great luxury. And we did lots of other things, but mostly in New York, Manhattan, people talk about pre-war buildings. They're talking about the Second World War. They're really talking about the buildings that were built from 1910 to 1930. And they're admired for many reasons: high ceilings, very beautiful plans with rooms very carefully proportioned, nicely related one to the other, nice foyers when you come in, and so forth. We captured a lot of that in the new apartments in 15. But what we didn't do, where in the old apartments you had a lot of servants' rooms and miserable kitchens, because Milady never went in the kitchen, and she certainly didn't cook, but she might have talked to the cook. Today, people want nice kitchens. I'm not sure how much cooking is done in 15 Central Park West, but we get rid of the maids' rooms and make family spaces. And then on another floor in the building, there's a whole set of maids' rooms, servants' rooms you can rent if you live there. But also these buildings are like clubs now. So we have a health club, we have a screening room, we have a restaurant just for the residents of the building, and so forth. So these are all features that, when expressed on the outside of the building, or as in the case of the swimming pool and the health club, under the fountain, which is glass roofed, add character to the building. And that's what the bottom line is. Instead of celebrating the repetitiousness of cellular construction, we overlay elements of a facade which express differences and articulate different rooms, different features. Almost every building that's new has a built-in history. So the genealogy of the present is part of the methodology by looking at the past. We are architects who build on the shoulders of the past. Well, the past is in the present. If you go to the window of this space, go out on that balcony, you look around, and for all the new construction in the 20th century, mostly you see 19th century construction. Now, in Le Corbusier, confronting something like that, but with a much deeper historical reference, wanted to tear it all down in his plans for Paris. I think it's much more exciting to enter into a dialogue with the past, and also to take things from the past and restudy them, theme and variation. Architecture is made up of many languages, in my view. And if we have a modern language, I'm not going to deny that one has evolved, but it doesn't mean that the other languages can't also continue to be spoken.